Why, hello there. Welcome to Smart Aspirations with Justin Huff. Sit back, chill out, and go on a journey around the world. Around the world. Justin will discuss tales of hope, discovery, and general irreverence with some of the most dynamic personalities in the travel business. Remember, we do cool shit, and so can you.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7 of Smart Aspirations with Justin Huff. This week is part 2 of our 2-part series with Alex Walker of the Sarian Portfolio of Camps in East Africa. I'll keep this introduction short and sweet and get right into it with my chat with Alex. If you haven't listened to part 1, I'd strongly encourage you to back up and listen to episode 6. Listen to my introduction about Alex, and so there's no confusion, and get caught up. We sort of pick up right where we left off from last week. So if you enjoyed the episode on YouTube, please click subscribe, give the video a like, and tell your friends about us. We'd love to grow this audience and create a community with our guests and listeners. That would really mean a lot. If you want to plan a safari to Kenya and Tanzania, as always, I've included the link in the description below. So we'd love to schedule a time for us to chat together and start planning and narrowing the focus of what you'd like to do on your safari. So without further ado, here's my friend Alex Walker, and I hope you enjoy. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us again today. This is Smart Aspirations with Justin Huff. As always, I'm your host, Justin Huff, and we're lucky enough to be joined again today by Alex Walker, who is, the last time we had a chat, we had some power connection issues in Nairobi, but fortunately, Alex has agreed to come back and join us. We were having this awesome conversation about the Great Migration and how it moves all throughout the Serengeti Masai Mara ecosystem throughout the year. And we had just left off chatting about the southern Serengeti. And Alex, you had just finished giving this awesome chat about all the different cultures and the history about all the people that have lived in this area. You've got 2 camps in 2 very, very different, diverse areas in this part of the Serengeti during, I believe the months are December through March when you're down there, right?
Yeah, evening, Justin. Yeah, back again, and hopefully this power stays with us. But,
yes, for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean the season. I mean, as such, I mean, if you go by the calendar year, you know, the rains fall at the end of December. You get these huge sort of storms across the open savanna, the shortgrass plains, and that's what bring all the wildebeest down there. And then they go through this whole. It's the birthing season, the end of January, February. I mean, it's prime time. It's spectacular. If you've never seen the migration, if you've seen all the river crossings and all the sort of drama in the north, which happens later in the year, which is what everybody focuses on. That's what they think the migration is. But when you see it in the south, it's this massive expanse. You've got a huge, you know, hundreds of kilometers of open plain just covered with wildebeest. The babies all happen at once. You know, you've got like 250, 300,000 babies dropping over a period of a month. So it just sort of, it's for the predators, I mean, it's just glut. I mean, they're just so full, they're lazy. But you get a lot of action. You've got lots of hyenas, you've got tons of cheetah, you've got the lions out there, wild dog are out there. On the edges, you've got the leopard operating. So it's a super spectacle. And then you've got these massive skies and this incredible green, lush green and full of flowers and the like. It's a secret season is what it is. You know, nobody really knows about it. They all concentrate on sort of that June, July, August sort of period, but that time from December through to the end of May, in fact, it's totally spectacular.
Secret
season.
And
one of those little, yeah, it is. It's like knowing that little perfect little sort of quiet mom and pop sort of restaurant that around the corner that is a neighborhood secret, but
right.
Hasn't big time, you know?
Yeah, of course. Actually, that's hugely sentimental to me because the first time I ever experienced the Serengeti Mara ecosystem was in February. And it's when you cross from the NCA into the Serengeti National Park, and we checked in at the Nabi Hill Gate and we walked up and had a look, and it's mind-blowing. Serengeti literally means endless plains, and the experience in itself is just completely insane. I love it.
Oh, no, it's a massive. It is a spectacle. Spectacle is the word. It's
Spectacle.
yeah. It's and you really need that. That's a place that needs time. You know, it's not a space where you can just come in, tick the box, move on. You've got to be there for a while to really understand the sort of nuances of the weather
Sure.
and these big storms that brush through, and it can be inconvenient. You get stuck in the mud, and it's a hassle. But the reality is, the longer you stay, the more you understand the motions, the layers of complexity, that brain that's sort of driven in, and then the movement of the herds 2 or 3 days later, shifting across from one side to the other. I mean, it's the behavioral aspect of it, and the weather patterns are really engaging. You wouldn't believe it, but I mean, you see the picture behind me, all these big
Sure.
skies. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's sheer spectacle, but then you've got all the predators out there at play. You've got the mud puddles, and you've got the hyenas, and you've got just great long trains of wildebeest crossing across these huge plains. I mean, you imagine a sort of the wagon train sort of crossing the American West in the 200 odd years ago.
That's an awesome comparison.
Bison, quite a bison, you know. I mean, they reckon there were 10, 12 million bison in the States on those plains.
Yeah.
You know, when we're talking about 2 million, we're blown away with how big a mega herd that we're talking about.
No, it's insane, of course. And your camps, you've got two, I wouldn't want to say dramatically different, but diverse enough, two different locations where your camps operate that time of year. Could you describe the experience in one and the other?
Yeah, so the weather patterns decide where stuff moves, and these herds will shift. You know, you can have 100,000 wildebeest on your front lawn, and you wake up the next morning and they're gone.
Right.
But I mean, they're gone like 10, 15 miles away, but you've got to go find where they've got to. And yet then there's a million wildebeest there. So we sit on the edges of the plains. We sit on the western side, the southwestern side. And there's some permanent, not permanent water, because there's no real permanent water in that whole area. This is the problem. We're talking about already a desert, a seasonal desert, where these storms put in these big puddles, and as they dry out, the herds then have to go and seek water. And in the woodlands on the side, you've got these water courses which dam and create sort of more permanent streams and little rivers and springs and the like. So the wildebeest shift across, and that's why we sit on those tree lines.
Okay.
The wildebeest they're either going to go into the woodland or coming out, or they're out in the middle of the plains. So location, like everything, location. It's the key element. The northernmost camp there, which sits in the Serengeti, is our Kusini camp, and it's packed with lion. I mean, you'll see probably 8 or 10 different prides of lion in that space. Cheetah, I mean,
8 prides in the area? My God.
Oh yeah, you'll see. Talk about cheetah, 12 or 14 cheetah in the day. You know, sometimes it's incredible. In the south, where we are, down in the bottom corner, we're right in the southwestern corner of the Serengeti, but actually in Ngorongoro. We've got this incredible freedom to roam where we want. We can drive off-road anywhere in that space. And the wild dog are particularly dominant. We've got 2, sometimes 3 packs of wild dog that operate in that area. And it's one of those little, I shouldn't really be talking about it here, to be honest, because it is one of those secret spaces. We're lucky enough that we are the only people that operate in that space. And you know, literally you can go 3 months without seeing anybody else's car.
That's incredible.
It's a spectacular space.
In the peak of the migration season, that time of year, not being able to see a single vehicle in sight is completely priceless, Alex, for sure. And if I'm not mistaken, you can do fly camping from that camp as well, right?
Yeah, so we do a lot of walking in that area. You know, of course, we talked earlier on about the cultural aspect of it.
Sure.
So we do a lot of walking with the Hadza, with the Maasai, with the other Bushmen, the Datoga, and it's really sort of exposing the sort of cultural being that their history and where they've come from and how they use these spaces. You know, the medicinal plants, the branches and trees that they use
Mhm.
to make bows and arrows. What do they make a haft or an axe from? You know, how do they survive in these environments? And they're pretty harsh. It's a really harsh environment. But walking with them, it's not just about the big game. You know, we see some elephant, there's some leopard tracks, there's some buffalo around. There's, you know, there's a lot of great game sightings, but it's more about sort of honey hunting. You know, following a little honey guide comes chattering over you while you sat there, and then next thing you're whistling to it and chasing it through the bush, and it leads you to a tree where there's a little beehive in there, and the next thing you're lighting fire from sticks, and you know you're smoking the bees out or putting them to sleep,
Right.
and then sort of cutting your way in and getting some of the honey and then sharing it with the bird that took you there.
Now, are the Hadza in the area permanently, or are they nomadic?
So all these tribes, like we talked last time, we basically sit on the cusp of 4 different tribes. We've got the Hadza that sort of come up from Lake Yasi and
Mhm.
further southwest. We've got the Maasai, who are really, that's the core part of their space, the Ndrobo Maasai, which are the hunter-gatherers. You've got the Wasukuma, who in the space next door, pretty much an agricultural tribe, with a lot of traditional hunting, I guess, would be a big part of their traditional lifestyle.
Right.
And then you've got the Datoga or Tindiga, who come from Lake Yasi as well. They're sort of a very similar type of personality to the Maasai and the big pastoralists.
Mhm.
But those guys came in maybe the 12th or 13th century from the southern highlands of Ethiopia.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they brought a whole different culture. So 4 very different, very diverse cultures there.
Right.
But all say, you know, using the area in their own way. 2 of them that are pastoralists, 2 of them that are sort of hunter-gatherers, and you know, each finding its own rhythm within that environment.
So it's the perfect immersive experience for somebody out for something in addition to just wildlife to make a whole holistic kind of safari experience in East Africa for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, let's. I mean, sorry, I sort of didn't really explain the fly camping. I mean, fly camping
Oh
is
yeah, yeah,
lightweight camping. I mean, when we talk about camping, we're talking about, probably in the States you refer to as glamping. You know,
sure.
big walk-in tents. You know, I mean, they've got a bathroom and a shower in the back. You know, huge double beds. That, you know, they're very well appointed. You know, this is a little different. When we talk about fly camping, it's more like your sort of small festival tents, same bedding and everything, but on the floor you've got a bucket shower, but it's hanging from a tree out of the back there.
Sure.
And your bathroom is what we call an old thunderbox. You know, a wooden box with a hole cut in the top, which you dig another short drop, a little short sort of hole underneath it behind, and just do your business and cover it up with a bit of dirt and move on. You know.
Now,
But it's a small lightweight camp that can be in space for 2 or 3 nights, or we shift it and every night 2 or 3, and you walk from place to place, and you can make a great little journey out of it. But it's really, I mean, that's, for me, that's my favorite. That out of all the camps that we have, that for me is my very favorite thing.
that's the ultimate
Really
experience.
engage with nature. Yeah.
And is this something that you find guests want to do after they arrive and book after the fact, or is this something that has to be done in advance so you can prep your team with the logistics and plan for it properly?
It's a very simple thing. We can put it out at drop of a hat. You know,
On
like
the
if
fly.
you at lunchtime, you said at lunchtime and said, "Hey, you know, let's go and do something different." Cool. We'll just put the fly camp up,
Oh,
and you
that's
can put
awesome.
it out overnight. But it needs time. You know, I mean, you can't just come for 2 or 3 nights and try and jam everything in. It doesn't work
Sure.
like that.
Sure.
You need sort of 5 nights, and 2 nights of that go like camping, or come on a real walk and do 6, 7 nights with us, walking with the fly camp and with the guys, and then come to the main camp for 4 or 5 nights afterwards and get back into the sort of the game drive and the big game, and getting out onto the plains and in amongst the herds.
And speaking of taking your time on safari, which is something that both you and I really, really support and believe in, Do you find guests are combining your camp in the NCA and in Kusini and Serengeti?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's a great combination. You know, say 4 nights and 4 nights. It works really well because you've got the cultural aspect, the walking,
Mm-hmm.
the wild dog, and the herds, and even cheetah and everything in the southern bit. But for more lion and hyena action, the Kusini camp is really well appointed. I mean, and that's got tremendous. I mean, there are sort of 6 really large populations of lion in the world, in Africa today, and that Serengeti Mara ecosystem is one of them. And if you want to talk about numbers, that southern Kusini area at
It's
this
full
time,
on.
that sort of late December through to April, May, is rocking. I mean, it's prime time.
That's perfect. And I think that clients that's always going to be on it. It's quintessential to see the lions and to see that. And especially when if you're combining a place like Kenya, especially up in the Mara North, I mean, that area is prime for lion too, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want like pure viewing, I mean, the Mara North Conservancy is probably it's the reason why the BBC has always operated there.
Right.
All the stuff that you've seen over the years, so much of it, probably 80% of it, has been filmed in that environment.
Yeah, I remember seeing those guys.
If people are familiar with the Big Cat Diaries, they were all filmed in the areas right outside of our camps in the Masai Mara.
That's awesome. If somebody is doing a combination of Kenya and Tanzania with you, I know that there's not entirely different qualifications, but could you comment briefly about the guide training and expectations in Kenya versus Tanzania, kind of compare and contrast, and if guests can expect a big difference?
I think, within our own business, you shouldn't be. I mean, we train everybody to the same extent. People come, the guys come from, and girls come from slightly different backgrounds. In the Mara, principally we've got Maasai guides. That's their home, their backyard. They live and they work it. And the same in Tanzania, we employ principally from the areas where we work. So most of the guides actually come from that southern area. They're either Maasai or they're Puma, and they've come through the system. So they start as an apprentice. They'll be out there sort of washing the cars, cleaning the cars, doing all the sort of the graft and the dirty work. And then they'll come and they'll work in the mess area and interact with clients and learn how to sort of engage with everybody and practice and polish their language.
Sure.
And then they'll get out on the vehicles and stuff. And we run these guiding, it's a course, it's not really a course, but it's sort of more mentorship type environment where 4, 5, 6 times a year, we'll bring in specialists, whether it's an ornithologist, whether it's a geologist, whether it's just a walking guide or, somebody with a particular skill. And we'll run little workshops and masterclasses and then just go and practice what we preach, and then put the guys back out in the car, switch them around. So, I mean, the guys might work with 2 or 3 different guides over 2 or 3 years. And it's a 2 to 3 year apprenticeship, basically. And when we feel that you're ready to take it on, and most of the time that just happens by chance. The main guide, primary guide is off, he's got a problem at home or he's off on leave, and we need somebody to step up. It's like, okay, there's your chance, go.
There's your opportunity.
Yeah,
it's almost like professional sports when that happens too. I mean, it's to see over the years, to see your commitment to the quality of guiding is absolutely incredible. I know you've got different guide schools and guide trainings, and a lot of people don't realize that when they book something with Alex Walker Safaris, every booking, no matter how big or small, is guaranteed a private guide and tracker that guests don't often realize until that, if they're being advised correctly by somebody like myself, they understand that. But sometimes guests arrive and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got my own guide, my own tracker, and I can tailor make the day towards my interests and goals. Could you comment briefly about the differences between a guide and a tracker, and what the different responsibilities are throughout a game drive and what guests can expect?
Yeah, so I think, the primary thing, of course, is when you, first of all, with the guide and the tracker comes a private vehicle and things, and therefore flexibility.
Right.
So your primary guide is somebody who has good language skills and is able to communicate and just help explain what's going on, just interpret the situation. Really, it's all about behavior. Is really what we're after. We're not out there to sort of listen to a radio and hear, oh, there's an elephant over here, there's a lion over here, zoom, zoom, and the old Ferrari safari, and
sure,
kick in there, a couple of pictures, and bugger off to the next thing.
Sure.
You get it's like sports. Using that sports analogy, the more you know about your team, the pairings of the players, the coach, the dynamics of it, the more you get from it. And it's the same with the wild. So you've got this better educated, sort of school learned, good communicator. And then your tracker will more than likely be somebody with 20, 30, 40 years experience in the bush, but can't speak English, but just knows everything that's going on. They just know that little bird sound means it's an alarm call, or there's something else. They can just read the situation. So by putting the two together, they combine and they share this knowledge, and they create the story. And by putting you in the middle of it, then you have a conversation going on.
Okay.
And therefore, you're really, it's like you're sitting sideline with the coach, talking to the coach why he's making a decision on changing a player or not, and then at halftime being in on the team talk and or in the middle of the huddle and listening to players' decisions. So it's the same with the guides and the trackers. They're going to involve you in their decision-making process and why, the whys and wherefores of what they're doing, what they're trying to, the little puzzle that they're trying to solve. It's like we heard some lion here last night, and we get out there super early in the morning, and then you're just listening for clues, or you're looking for clues, and eventually you work it all out, and then you find out where the lion are, and you go cruise and sit with them. But this is not your Disney sort of movie where things have taken 3 years. People have taken 3 years to put that stuff together.
I know.
You can't expect to see the same within 2 or 3 days.
Sure.
And hence, give it some time, because that allows them to really dig deep and go and find the things and focus on what you really want. So a big advantage of having your own crew is that you can get out there when you want, for as long as you want, all day if you want. Get out there at 5 in the morning if you're a photographer. That early light is just fantastic. For me, it's my favorite time of day. That sort of hour pre-dawn to the sort of 2 hours afterwards.
Sure.
Or you stay there later in the evening, very much in the Masai Mara. We talk about Mara North. Those lying there, when you go and find them at 5:30, they're just sleeping. But come 6:30, they're suddenly the little ones up and playing and tweaking mama's tail. The next thing, mama gets up and goes and meets the other females, and then the next thing, one of the females goes off. But now it's just getting dark, So at this stage, a majority of people would have left to go home to the camp. But now is the chance you can get out there and start to follow the action.
Right.
And more often than not, if you stick with them, you're going to see them make a kill, albeit by a spotlight or with thermal imaging goggles and things. You get to sort of take part in this action and be out there for maybe a chance at the Holy Grail later on, the aardvarks and the aardwolves and the pangolins and things that come out at sort of after dark, 9, 10 o'clock.
Oh, sure. And from personal experience, having seen lion cubs wake up and come to life and kind of nudge and wake mom and dad, it's very similar to our own lives, with kids, trying to wake mom and dad up and way too early and go out for the day. It's
I guess a lot of people are getting quite familiar with that right now.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to put it. You mentioned briefly photography. If you've got guests that are keen photographers, are most of your guides trained to? I know that they're trained in basic photography, where to position the vehicle, where the best lighting is. But can they actually help guests with their camera and the settings and things like that?
Yeah, like everybody, the guys have their different passions. Some are really into the birds and
sure,
ornithologists, and they're actually probably the better guides, to be honest, because the birds have got a big story and they're keeping an eye on the whole bigger picture. They'll point you in the direction of a lot of stuff if you pay attention.
Are you getting a
Same
lot of?
with-
Do you get a lot of birders, or most people more interested in the main?
No, I think people become birders. Yeah, I think people become birders on the back of a safari. Once you come out there and realize there's such a variety, and again, it's the behavior that, it's not just a bird flying by, a pretty bird. Yes, you start to understand a bit of the behavior and the nuances of play that really you dig in deeper and start to engage and really start asking and looking. And in fact, maybe it actually turns people into casual birders back home as well. The pair of binoculars by the kitchen window or something.
Hey, completely. I bought a bird book on my way back home. My first time I went to Kenya, I bought I came in with, completely cold, had no interest in birds. And then you kind of get this incredible interest in them, seeing the guides just interpret their behavior, like you said. And then you come home, a bird book, it's incredible.
That's the truth. So, so dodging back to your photography question.
Oh, yeah.
The reality is, there are other guys that have real passion for photography. They're great photographers themselves, and they're perfectly able. And the reality is that, guys are operating on, you can take some incredible footage, photographs, gimmicky sort of time lapses and the like, or slow motion video stuff with your iPhone. It's not just your commercial and high quality sort of cameras. And we do a lot of photographic workshops with specialists. So in camp, certainly in Namara, we have seasonally what we call a photographer in residence or artist in residence.
Yeah.
And so we'll have these incredible talent. They really are a unique talent. And these guys and ladies as well will come and spend time with us for a month or two at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And the deal is that they're there, they can fulfill their own portfolio and get more images of themselves. But really, it's about spending time with the clients and helping you with your cameras and helping you get the best that you can from these tools and really sort of getting creative, looking at sort of post-processing as well as actually catching the shot itself. The guides are really good at positioning, and a lot of photography is just patience and positioning yourself. A lot of patience. It's just being in the right place and hanging out. But while you're sitting there, there's so many other things going on. So it's not wasted time by any chance. But,
you mentioned briefly that your artist in residence, is that like more of a landscape painter artist?
Yeah, so it's not all the time, but occasionally we'll have painters in residence.
Cool.
I've actually just been contacted by through one of our photographers. Has just put me in touch with this incredible animal artist who's great. He basically paints the outline of an animal, and then inside it paints in very minute detail the environment in which it lives. So whether it's a whale with a sort of a seashore with breaking waves sort of coming onto it, or whether it's a lion with the savanna and the trees and all the grass. He's quite a peculiar talent. So hopefully that we get to hook up with Sujay and get him to come up to the Mara and spend some time with us, where he can sort of share his skills. It's actually, when we're walking, it is one of the things. I carry watercolors in my backpack.
No kidding.
And even when we're sitting at sort of river crossings and things, and sometimes the moment you're just having to sit there for a while, waiting for something to happen, or you come across this scene where you just tuck yourself in under the bushes next to the riverbank or up under a tree somewhere, and the colors and just the pace of life, and it just lends itself to breaking out the paints and giving everybody a bit of paper, and here's the paint, and just paint what you see. And it's not what you produce or what comes out of it, it's the process. It's the just settling down. It's a sort of a meditation stroke Zen type exercise. Completely. Where you just settle in and you pick some colors, and then you're suddenly looking at what you thought was blue has actually got purple and green and yellow and red behind it. It's a great exercise for the mind and for the soul.
completely just, and to be able to slow down and disconnect. And I think that in today's society, especially with everything that's going on in the world in 2020, that is so important. And you come back completely recharged. I cannot tell you how many times I see people coming back from an awesome, holiday, but everything is jam packed and they're just completely exhausted. So to be able to slow down, take it easy, and really spend time in your surroundings is so important for today's guest. I think
Yeah, I think the creativity is certainly out of this whole, I might call it an exercise. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean,
Correction.
the Groundhog Day or whatever. It's what becomes apparent is that initially you're sort of a little frustrated, or you're getting carried away with sort of having to clean up your own business. What's happening with in terms of all the changes and how you deal with it. And then you get a chance to sort of think about, the future and what are you doing to position yourself and see ourselves, for next year, and how do we reposition ourselves within our own marketplace, and what can we provide to everybody. And then slowly you find the time now to get creative again. And this is a big advantage of a safari holiday, especially when you're bouncing all the time and changing every 2 or 3 nights to somewhere different. All you're doing is picking up and packing and leaving and getting back into a new environment. When you spend 7 nights, 10 nights in one place, and especially for big multi-generational families, especially for older folk, especially for photographers,
sure,
the creative energy comes because you get past that first 2 or 3 days of angst, and then you start to notice stuff, and you start seeing the colors and the shapes and the patterns, and you start getting an idea of a particular image that you're trying to capture if you're a photographer. Or there's a certain light at a time of day and a tree that you want to go back to, or you want to get out the plains and try and get the giraffe silhouettes as they sort of walk through in the early sunlight, or against the sunset, or the water with the hippos, and trying to sort of slow it all down and get the hippos in this beautiful sort of tight, very focused frame, but the water just rushing through them with all the movement and slowing down. These are the things that the challenges. Of course, if you're just like spending half an hour to try and catch that moment, well, you'd be lucky, or most of the time you won't. But if you've got a series of days to sort of plan it and work it out and feel it and go back and try it again and look at it, you come out with these incredible pieces of art at the end of the day. It's a photograph, or whether it's a time lapse, or a little video composition, or whether it's even just collecting the sounds. We have a couple of guys that come out every year and just collect sound.
No kidding. Just collect sound.
It's awesome. Yeah, you spend time watching the best suspense movies out there. Hitchcock was a king.
Yeah.
It's you watch that movie with your ears, not your eyes.
Unbelievable. I had no idea that was even remotely a thing. That's actually, I would, coming back after a safari and having sounds of the bush, that would be just an incredible meditative tool, to get you through the day if you're stressed out or just trying to just readjust to life after being in East Africa for 2 weeks.
It's sound is I mean, your senses, when we talk about your senses coming alive, when you're sitting in a car and driving around, when you drive down the street, windows up, music on, aircon blasting,
sure,
you're there, you're aware of what's going on, but you have no idea. If you're walking down that street on the sidewalk, you're in it. You're feeling the elements. You're feeling that wind. You're listening to the sounds of the cars coming past, the tick clack of the heels of somebody behind you, the smell of the bread coming out of the bakery. You're far more aware of your environment, and it's the same. If you go and sit in that early morning, that pre-dawn, and you just close your eyes, you're going to hear, the start of the dawn chorus. Which birds pitch in first? Where are they? Are they up? Are they down? Are they shifting? Is another one calling back to them? You'll hear the jackals calling in the distance. Maybe the hyenas as they're rushing home. They're calling to each other, talking. When you're driving along, you don't get that. because it's purely visual. You're looking for visual stimulus. But when you stop and you listen, there's a whole different layer going on.
And as I'm thinking about this, the concept of wellness is so apparent. Is that a common request or theme or aspect of safaris that you think people are interested in? Wellness safaris?
I think more and more so, and it's fantastic because it's sort of come full circle. Because the reason people came on safari when I first started doing 30-day, 45-day trips was to get away from all the hullabaloo, all the sort of the daily grind and everything. And it's one of the reasons why we don't provide Wi-Fi in camp. We deliberately don't do Wi-Fi. And it's really to get you to disconnect with, I mean, you've got a trying time at the moment, which of course is, is really important, and that people take a part in that. But, your day-to-day life is not just about politics. It's about also school. It's about the routine of your job and your work. It's being connected. So many people now are just purely connected. They basically wake up, they go to a computer or telephone, and until the time they go to sleep, that they're never two seconds away from it. You constantly picking up your phone to check if there's a message.
Constantly behind the screen.
You need to leave it behind. This is mental health we're talking about here.
I couldn't agree more.
And we're talking about, you throw in some yoga. So, I mean, Candace, who you know very well.
Sure.
She does some great yoga retreats as well, but not just yoga. It's a wellness thing. So we eat well, it's farm to table, it's fresh veg, we're outdoors, we're in the sunshine, we're walking, we're active. We don't have any of that blue screen time. We don't have any internet or that disruption to your daily life. And then you're throwing in the yoga, you're throwing in tree climbing. When was the last time you climbed a tree?
Oh my God. It's been way too long, to be honest. It's 20 years.
I mean, it's crazy. This is what kids do. Why can't we do it still?
Right.
We should be rock hopping and tree climbing and just enjoying life, for what it is and what nature can bring you. And it really will. It gives back hugely. And I think a lot of people have also found those that have been able to take this last couple of 3 months in a space where they've got a nice garden or a bit of nature. That's why I certainly will understand it. But those that have been cooped up in a box in New York or another big city, I mean, nature it's a healer. Without the risk of sounding too much like a tree hugger, but I mean, I'm telling you, it really, I love it. The Japanese have a term, kimorebi, where you lie under a tree, or where you're there in that dappled shade of a tree, the sunlight's coming through it, you've got that light, warm breeze, and it's sort of, again, it's a mechanism that sort of pulls you back in and into introspection, and then into those sort of Zen spaces where you just clear your mind and clear your focus. It's like watching flames. That campfire we have in the evening?
Oh, absolutely.
Sitting watching those flames. Yeah, it's soporific. I mean, that stuff just gets you. It's the whole place is about these little moments. And your mind is very strong, broad imagination, kids especially. But for everybody, I think we need a disconnect. It's a definitely, wellness is a huge part of what we do and what we continue to do. And it's that 7 night, 10 night, just go to one space and enjoy it for what it is.
And each sense is completely entranced and hypnotized and reinvigorated. Like you said, looking at the fire, being able to just relax from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep, and even during your sleep, it's a completely healing. Safaris in general, especially with you guys, it's a completely healing and almost a rebirth, I want to say, because it's just one of those places where you can disconnect and really get in touch with who you really are. And I don't see a lot of other experiences on this planet that can offer you such a rewarding experience and coming back a completely different person. So I'm excited for I'm excited for the future. I know that we have to go through a lot, especially America and the world. during these trying times. But I think, we'll slowly but surely wrap this up. But I really think that you guys have a bright future. Your ethos is incredible. For the listeners, any parting comments to kind of inspire them, if we haven't done that already?
I don't know. It's Johnny on the spot.
Totally on the spot.
Inspiring. I mean, listen, it's get back into nature, even if it's your backyard.
Totally.
Get out to the nearest park or somewhere, and just listen to it. Listen to it. I mean, don't just look at it with your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Smell it, hear it, see it. Even taste it. If it's a question of having a little allotment, a garden patch or something. And Africa's that for you. And then with the incredible people. I mean, Africa's safari is about people. It's about connections. It's about traveling. Be a traveler, not a tourist, I think is the takeaway that I'd encourage people to
be a guest and a citizen, not necessarily just a visitor.
Yeah, that's it. Just take time to get to know people,
Completely.
Learn their story, talk with them, engage with them.
I think you really got me. I've got to climb a tree today. It's been long.
You better send me a picture.
Yeah, I will. I'll do that.
There you go. There's the challenge to everybody. Go climb a tree. Send a picture.
There's the challenge. Tree climbing challenge. The Alex Walker challenge. Alex,
what's the hashtag? Hashtag what's going to be?
Hashtag, we can do like a joint marketing hashtag. We can do like Alex swag or Sarian swag. What do you think?
There you go. Sarian swag. Bring out that inner child.
be a kid again. Seriously. All right. Yeah. Alex, this has been absolutely fantastic. And I can't wait until everything is going full speed ahead again. And for everybody to slow down, ironically. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining us.
Justin, thanks. And good luck to you guys. Stay safe.
All right. Thanks, man. Perfect.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. Be well.
Thank you for listening to Smart Aspirations. Justin Huff is the manager of Swaggy Swan Travel. For all travel-related inquiries, please visit www.swaggyswan.com. That's www.swaggyswan.com. And click inquiries. Have a stupendous day, and we'll see you next week.